Welcome to the Channels of Growth interview series, where we interview world-class founders and operators about exactly how they grew their company. All right, Cody, how did you make your very first dollar as an entrepreneur? I'm super curious.
That's a great question. It was probably in high school. I figured out how to do screen print t-shirts. That was like I was always into art, right? So I was like in some way doing something related to that. And so in a class, I learned how to basically build screens to do screen printing. And so then it was something ridiculous too. I can't even remember. I think it was like a roller hockey club or something like that. But I remember I bought shirts at Michael's for $2 and then I sold them for 20. And I was like, this is printing money. Why am I not doing anything else?
Wait, that's wild. So like physically screen printing, like you had
Physically screen printing, like you pull a squeegee down over a screen. I could talk to you like about that so deeply because it was, again, like one of the first companies that I really got into. So this is actually before I met you, Kobe, because I had that digital printer when we met, which allowed for basically full color, and it was a direct to garments or a D2G printer. And that's like the screen printing actually led into that. And that's how I ended up in that other world.
That's wild. I didn't realize it was a physical business. That's hilarious.
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. There was a moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my career. I'm going to make a massive, imagine like a custom ink type of business. I'm going to layer over some type of e-commerce solution and basically like scale that up. And
Wow.
so in another life, maybe.
From physical screen printing to digital B2B SaaS. I love it. All right. So for someone who wants to start their own business, do you think it's more important to be great at selling products or building products?
So I look at companies, like I think about this a lot actually, of what makes a company. And I always just try to go back to history and look at kind of the composition. And the thing that's never changed is you have to have something to sell and you have to have a way to sell it. I think they go hand in hand. It's the same side of two coins. You can sell things, right? And we've seen that in history. Like the classic is like oil salesman or like the traveling salesman that would sell a terrible product. But what that doesn't do is that you can't build brand long term doing that. But simultaneously, like you can have a great product, and if you have no vehicle to sell it or people don't want to buy it, you also don't exist. And so I really land more and more that they're critical components of it, but they can be dissected in so many different ways. Like you can have an okay product and a really good sales mechanism and make a massive company. And you can have a really good product and an okay sales mechanism, and you can have a really good company as well. It's two sides of this spectrum, but as long as the weights add up to be 100 or whatever, you can typically build a business. And that's how I think about it more and more. So hopefully that answers the question. But
Yeah, I'm super curious. Do you think it's easier to start as someone who knows how to sell or start as someone who knows how to build?
I think knowing how to sell is the easier thing to learn because there's a lot of people that will hire you to come in and sell for them. Like one of the best things I ever did was I went and worked at an Apple store during a holiday season. And it was just basically sale after sale, like the amount of just rotations that you get on that, the amount of at bats, you really quickly figure out, first off, how do I sell? Second off, how do I communicate product? How do I align with the customer? How do I meet them where they are? And how do I find? I remember this one time I was selling this older couple an iPhone and they were like, I don't need this. None of it made sense. And then you finally showed them FaceTime and they like bought 6 iPhones for their whole family so that they could basically and that you don't uncover that unless you have that conversation and you find that lever that's different for each of them. On the product side, I think it's one of the hardest things to get, but then once you understand it, it's like the fastest tipping point. The curve just goes like very vertical really quickly. Sales, I feel like you can be thrown to the wolves and it's like a faster learning curve as long as you're having those at bats. Product is hard because if you don't know how to get feedback loops on like people don't like the products or like they don't want anything to, if you don't have that sales mechanism, you just will be, I've done this, especially as an early entrepreneur, I was just like trying to force things in the market. And that is like the maturity, I think, in the entrepreneurship journey is coming to the realization, like I can never force the market. There's large corporations that try to do this and can't, like full stop. And so if they can't do it, it's crazy for me to think that I can. And maybe there are these outliers. Of course there are. 99 times out of 100, in reality, there's a market force that's naturally happening. And our job is to identify that and then build a product that rides that force. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that was great. Fascinating. So on that trend or on the note, I'm curious, do you think it's important to have a co-founder?
Yeah, if you can't either sell or you can't build product, you have to. So that's for me, I'm building this stuff with Max Shahab right now. And like Max is one of the most unbelievable engineers I've ever encountered. Just, it's crazy, man. We both worked with him, so we know, but he like just the amount of just the product intuition, I think, is a big piece of it. Like he has such an intuition around it, which is, it's really hard to make. I think it's one of those things that you're like, you are born with that, and then you work on it, and people can build it up. Like the more you put out in public, the more you start to feel what's going to work and know beforehand. But yeah, I think that when I think about product more and more, I'm really focused on, are they receptive to what people want to buy? That is another just like entrepreneurship, like leveling up. Like when I have a builder that like isn't receptive to what the people are saying they want to buy, that's when it's like they're trying to force something on them. You're not going to win. So anyway, what was the question again? Just I want to make sure I get all the points, but
Yeah, no, do you think it's important to have a co-founder? Oh, I'm going to take us off script though, Cody.
yeah.
I'm super curious about your pivot to Draft Horse, because you guys were working on something else, and it was like it was like AI tool for podcasting, and then you pivoted into AI for like article writing.
Yeah.
And I think that was a brilliant pivot, man. Like you went from this like little tiny audience of, okay, people who want their like podcast like written up, to anyone who wants to write articles or content, which like it was like 100x bigger market. And I think you guys are like seeing it in like how strong it like has PMF. I'm curious like how you guys ended up taking that pivot. Like what was the conversation with you and Max, and like how did you guys get there?
Full transparency, we're just degenerates, right? And so like where this all came from is we were just like, let's just throw it out there and see what people think. So just to take a step back. So we built Swell AI. It's an AI writer for podcasters. It still exists. It's running. It's growing still quick, but it's not what Draft Horse is. So it's growing about 50%. Swell's growing about 20% compounding month over month. Draft Horse, the graph looks like a Metro Circus. It's just the most vertical thing I've ever seen. So really where this came from is I built a tool internally that was doing programmatic SEO for Swell. I was talking about it in public, and then I had people start asking for it. They're like, I want this thing. And they were like DMing me, give me this script. And so I like gave it to some people, and it was like this clunky Python script that I wrote with ChatGPT in a 3-hour window. Nothing special or interesting, but the market just kept saying, we got all these signals. And so from there, we just spun this web app up, and the first version of it was you basically just copy and pasted your target keywords in, and then it wrote like this like long form article for you. But it just went viral, to be totally honest. And I've been building this Twitter audience, and that's like the only reason that this is even possible. It's like I'm getting like, I think in the last 28 days, I've gotten 2.7 million impressions on Twitter. I have 7,000 followers. Like it's insane. Wow. So when you look at profile views, it's like around 194,000. So if you think about that, I'm introducing 194,000 people to these two different products. What does that do just from like an inbound? So that's really where it came from. It was like solving our own issue with something that I had a deep expertise in, which was like, how do I build a ton of articles basically at scale, right? How do I 0 to 1 in SEO strategy? And the other kind of component of this is I had been doing testing on on AI written content because I didn't believe it would rank, right? Like we've both been in the SEO world for the last, as long as we've had our careers, right? So since 2012, at least, in 10 years, right? And I'm like, if we would have had this conversation 18 months ago, I'd be like, absolutely, there's 0% chance it could rank. But come July, something happened with the LLMs where they became good enough. It was like, suddenly it was like, they were good enough. Like the outputs from a marketer's perspective, I was like, oh, I can actually use this. And so I was just curious. I had this Age blog, and I was like, let me just throw some up. Let's throw up 50 articles that are AI written. Let's see what happens. And the graph still is just up and to the right. And so I'm over, and the read time on these articles is like 10 plus minutes. And again, this is programmatically done with no human editing. And the only thing that we've done is just make sure that like the on-page signals are correct. So it's like target keyword in the URL, in the title, and in the first paragraph. That's like it. And it's just, this is one of those things where it's like I get a lot of pushback on this. They're like, it will never rank. Google's going to downrank it. I'm like, I want to believe that as well, but all the data is saying something entirely different. And so for me, it's like this kind of everybody be contrarian, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is one of those things where I'm just following the data, and that's making this a contrarian viewpoint. But everything that I'm seeing and everything that like people are showing me that are using the tool, like using Draft Horse, is pointing towards this, where it's like, Google wants to have a good search result for this long tail keyword. If you provide that and it's AI written, even if it's only 90% of how a human editor could do it or a human writer could do it, it's still a better answer than what currently exists. So they're going to serve that content all day long. And we're seeing it like in the actual events that are happening on the page. Like they're spending 10 minutes on these articles. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Man, I'm just answering the answers to my own questions like later on this roadmap, but I keep thinking about like the difference between programmatic SEO and then AI SEO. And it's like the AI SEO is so much better.
100%.
I'm programmatically making all these pages based off of whatever database of information I might have, but then layer that with like the AI SEO and now you have a whole freaking article about it. Whereas before you one sentence of data that you might have scraped from somewhere.
Yes. Can we talk about that actually, just that difference? Because I want to go further even down.
All right. So, next question, Cody. Can you combine AI SEO with programmatic SEO?
100%. So like this is what I'm most excited about. We are seeing this opportunity right now. Like I think every marketplace right now can be disrupted. Like traditionally, right? It's Etsy or I'm a large marketplace like Amazon or whatever. And they build all of these landing pages that are about all of these long tail keywords, and it's done programmatically. Traditionally, how that was done is they were just like pulling the Search Console data and they were just making a page where it's just titled that, right? And then the results that you would get on the actual marketplace are typically not that good, especially if it's a long tail thing. And so what we're envisioning and where we see this opportunity, and I think we're going to build this into DraftHorse too, which I'm pretty honestly just excited about coming from an ecom like background and from the beginning. Like we can basically ingest that Search Console data. Imagine I plug my Shopify store in and I sell wholesale hats, and I take those, I basically make a collections landing page about everything related to wholesale hats, right? There's 3,000 of them, we'll say. So it makes all of those. And then the AI can understand which of my SKUs are related to the query, most likely to be related to the query. And then it can rank what it puts on that marketplace landing page based on what it thinks has the closest to the search query intent. So there's three things that are happening there. One, I can build these pages at scale without having to have an eng team of 10 people. Two, I can write better content on the page, which makes it like a greater likelihood for it to rank. Three, the result that I'm actually serving is better because the products are going to be more related to that query. And then the other piece of this is that when you attach Search Console into this, blogs and marketplaces can basically optimize themselves. So, for example, like we have an alpha of this internally. So we're having it just write meta titles and then look at the CTR changes over a 7-day period. And so it's just constantly iterating on itself to get the highest click-through rate. So what you get is basically more traffic based on the data that you're providing back to it. So we're constantly looking for these grace flywheels, right? This is this way that we're going to be able to do this, like using AI in the SEO world. And I think people they don't even like, I'm over here. I'm just like, I see that this new thing is evolving. I don't even know what it is yet. And I think how you described it is actually AI SEO is going to be like programmatic is going to evolve into that, because programmatic doesn't really define it. Like programmatic traditionally, imagine a spreadsheet and I've got all these variables and I'm putting those variables in. It's not even that. Like how we're writing this content, especially the long form stuff. It's like we take that keyword phrase, we basically create like a detailed blog post outline that we think has the greatest likelihood of ranking. We go and we write that, we publish it, we connect Search Console. And now as the data comes in for that blog post that we wrote, we can modify that blog post. So refresh that content automatically so that it can be more impactful to my business. So say I have a business goal of signups, I can say that's that event trigger. So I put a script tag in the website, right, on the blog, and DraftHorse will just provide you a script tag. And so it's going to optimize the content and write the content so that it creates that event to happen as likely as possible. And from a marketer standpoint, I'm just over here just, oh my God, like we used to spend, there was multiple people, like that would be like multiple full-time people would be focused on that. And now we can basically augment this. And I think that how I'm viewing it is like the people, like the marketers that are 10x marketers they're about to become 100x marketers. If they understand how to deploy these things, it's going to absolutely just change the game. So anyway,
That's wild. My brain keeps thinking through what happens next. There's two levels to this. There's absolutely arbitrage right now, right? Like you can use Draft Horse to go out into the world and just create a ton of awesome content for places that there isn't currently like content that it's
exactly.
just search terms and phrases. I'm I'm curious like what the next step is of okay, once this becomes so first it's like a race to do this, right? It's like,
Totally. It's an arms race.
yeah, that's wild, first of all. Yeah, I think that's probably why like it went viral, right? Is like people realize, oh, we can do this.
Yeah.
And it's
Legit marketers were like, oh my God. So and I'm talking a breadth of companies. I'm talking insurance companies. I'm talking like cremation services. I'm talking like e-commerce company. Like the types of companies that are all doing this and all realizing, oh, I don't have to pay an SEO agency 50 grand a month. Like I can do this at a tenth of the cost of what it used to be. And all I need is a strategy person to basically like have the inputs be correct. And we're also like, we're going to augment that as well. Like we're going to basically ingest your entire like website's written content. And then we're going to be like, cool, based on this corpus, like what are the keywords that are most likely to create company, like sales for this company or whatever your goal is. And then we can find keywords and low volume keywords, and low KD keywords and write content based on that. So like the strategy component is about to be disrupted as well. I have no idea where this is going. I'm over here and I'm like, will SEO even exist in 2 years? Because in the form that it is currently, I don't see how it continues. Yeah.
okay, my train of thought is there's gonna be like different types of content. Like I think Google search for subject
Totally.
experts who are writing about like unique N of one stuff. Like that is like always gonna be a thing. And then there's this space that like the AI SEO is filling up of like long tail keywords and stuff that's like uniquely created to match these specific things that people are ranking for. And I definitely think like that piece of the universe is gonna get eaten up. I'm curious like what happens in after 2 years of that is there a way to make AI SEO content like truly unique to your business in a way that like gives you a competitive advantage over like someone else that also has access to like Draft Force?
Yeah, absolutely. Hypothetically, like you could train off of your own voice. You could also train it off of your internal like documentation and corpus. So say you have what I'm describing is like, I could take like all of my, we were talking to some people at Gartner and they were like, hey, we want to take all of our PDF documents and then basically have that be the source information. And then here's this target keyword, you write this outline and pull that information from that. So your internal data is going to become more and more valuable than ever before. That combined with like expert writers are about to become the most valuable resource. That to your point, talking about that N of one thing, like the tutorial types of content, et cetera. And so with all that said, I'm experimenting with a breadth of content and building these blogs out. Like my whole PR thing right now is like, I'm building 300 like niche websites and just like talking about them in public because I'm basically just trying to see what type of content is actually going to be good for SEO. Sorry, what type of content is AI content going to be able to like be good at? And it seems things we're seeing limitations on is like tutorials, right? Like where it's like screenshots of what you should do, that type of thing. It's just not going to be as effective. I think there is a huge opportunity for that differentiate. Like where this goes is to the end. It's like the long tail of the curve, right? So like the agencies that are hiring like fresh new grads out of college to have them come in and work $20 an hour and just rank content for their like for the companies that they are basically have clients for. Those people are going to be replaced, right? Because an AI is going to be able to write at the quality level because those people have no domain knowledge. Like they're just coming in and they have general understanding. They're the middle of the bell curve. The AI is really good at writing to the middle of the bell curve. But if you want it to write to very specific ideas, you can get it to do that if you give it boundaries on what it can use as its source information. And then you tap into the LLM. So this is something that we learned at Swell, right? So like with Swell, what we did is we say, hey, here's this boundary of the transcript. I want you to repurpose that content into something new. So when I do that, you get unique outputs, right? You're just tapping into the LLM's ability to write, but you're saying that the facts are just this thing. Your view of the world is just this thing. So expand that, right? And say you're a cybersecurity company and you have all of this knowledge about a specific idea, right? That's your IP, right? You know these things that others don't. You can give the AI access to this internal database and then say, hey, here's this target keyword. And I want you to write based off of our internal database so that the content is unique and it's totally different from somebody else. So I think there's going to be, and there's levels of that. Well, I don't know yet, right? This is just what we're seeing happen. And this is how we're seeing companies use this. We're seeing companies talk, like how I'm talking about it to companies is you have commodity content and you have like thought leadership content. Like those are the sides of the spectrum, right? And the AI is really good at writing commodity content. And so like we're working with this company where they're like, hey, I just want to write like everything that's related to my niche. Like I want an article to exist about that because they're just thinking about it for impressions. Like when somebody searches like any keyword related to them. So like for Repo, it'd be like any keyword related to functional medicine, we want to come up full stop. So they're just thinking about that as an impressions game. They have this whole other side of the spectrum where they're like, okay, cool. We also want to use AI to augment our like thought leadership content and take our junior team members and elevate them to a way so that they can talk like industry experts based off of this internal data, this internal knowledge base that we have. So those are the two ways.
Okay, this is fascinating. It's like AI is really good at duplicating brains, right? Where you store all this information, like you can take all of the medical case studies in the world, put that in a database, train the LM on that, and then it can like spit out stuff based off of that. And it seems like exactly what you're saying is it will get rid of all of the $20 an hour interns that are creating content. And it seems like the strategy in the future then is you bring in experts who like write stuff that hasn't been written before, and you pay top dollar to bring in like world-class people to create a like database of knowledge. And then you build out like 100 pages of, all right, here's this like world expert and whatever your niche is that's create content for you. And then you take the AI SEO, right? And you say, okay, off of this like database of knowledge, go create 10,000 articles for every different variation of search query someone might have and use this
100%.
data knowledge to match up with this very specific searches that everyone is creating.
100%. So to even take it a step further, it's not just, you don't even have to hire them. It could just be things that they talked about in public settings. It could be transcripts. It doesn't have to be formatted. It can be unstructured data. So like we're doing this right now where we're like uploading like transcripts of all the podcast episodes that the company has ever published, all of the blog post articles, all of the PDFs about product specs, etc. And then from that, I can be like, cool, here's this blog post outline, or even just a target keyword. Go find me all of the information that's within my company's library, and now make the content output that I'm looking for. Now, we're just talking about the written content piece, but I guarantee you, versions of this will exist for audio, for video. We're already seeing that, right? Where it's cool. Imagine I have all these MP3 files that I uploaded. They're all transcribed and they're existing within the library. And I want to go find everything that talked about telehealth. Now pull out all of those sections that talked about telehealth. Find me a hook and stitch together 5 supporting claims based off of that hook. And suddenly I have this new piece of media that was just generated by AI. And like, we have already we've built versions of this, again, super alpha, but we're seeing this opportunity right now on a content production. Like, Kobe, where I'm at with this right now, man, is like, you're going to be able to just you're going to upload all this stuff to a content management system, like some storage like space. And I'm going to take my startup and I'm going to plug it in to this software or a version of this. And it's just going to start marketing the company. Like, I think I told you this idea like 5 years ago when we were working together. I was like, I think this is possible. I don't know when it's going to happen, basically. But I think we're at like all of the technology exists now. It's just a matter of time. And so like what we're building with Swell, like that was like, oh, cool. I can repurpose thought leadership content. Like what we're building with DraftHorse is, oh, I can do commodity content at scale. And I think we're honestly just going to keep building these micro products that are pieces of this idea, because there's this larger idea in there where it's, okay, can I get a company to market itself? So all I have to have is good products people. And then I just plug my company. Like maybe I still have to make the raw materials of creative. Like I have to interview people and I have to get video and all those pieces, but it's going to take what the AI is a curator, or really it's a junior staff member. And then the person is basically, you're going to have a raw materials from a market, like the marketer, what they turn into what I see in the future is like, they are either producing raw materials or they are like the final human oversight of what's going out there, right? It's like, they're just looking at like the thing that gets published right before it gets or whatever. All of the labor in that process, that content production process, I think that it can be automated just based on what we're seeing and based on what we're building and what we're seeing within the media production space. There's like things every week where I'm like, oh my God, that's insane. If we had that when we first started all the stuff we were doing at Rupa, overnight, the media company that took whatever it was, 12 months or 18 months for us to build, we could have done that in like probably 4 days. And that's insane to think about.
That's wild, Cody. Okay, I question I must ask is, what is Google's stance of AI SEO? Is it being penalized? Do you think it'll be penalized in the future?
So they made a public statement in February of this year where on their AI content policy. So basically all they've said, and of course it's super vague, but basically they said, we don't care how the content is written, if it provides value. So they just rank it based like similarly to how they do like their EAT scoring, right? So again, when I'm going after low KD keywords that don't have a good search result and I put anything up there, like, of course it's going to rank. Like there's no other good query. So to break that down even further, let's think about the incentives that are there. So Google creates a better user experience because there's a better search result than the ones that are currently there. They have a new piece of content that they create more time on site. The publisher is getting traffic. They'll probably put AdSense on there. Google makes more money because they get the clicks. And so all of this, the thing that gets crazy to me is what if Google just starts publishing these things, right? It has all this corpus of keywords. It could make a website that's like how to start XYZ. That's the site I just started because I worked as one of those like 300 sites experiments, right? And it's like how to start XYZ business. Mm-hmm. And so like we published this article. It's how to start a polymailer business. And in 7 days, it went to page 1.
Wild.
Why can't Google just make their own content? I don't think they will because they shoot themselves in the foot with the publisher, but that is 100% possible right now. And that's where I think social is going, by the way. Like, I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see a TikTok that like makes you the exact content that gets you the most hooked. And it just makes content. It's like this dopamine hit constantly. It's just all AI generated shit. So
okay, I forget which conference it is exactly. Someone who's watching this can go find it and put in the comments if I can't find it. But I'm pretty sure that's the way that Google is going. I saw a demo of it and they had an AI feature in there. So it'll have the AI result to be like, you ask a question and then it'll like just give you the answer and it's like little Google AI and then the listings are underneath of it. And I want to say it links to the source of where it found that answer too. So there's a couple like really interesting pieces of that. Is part of the AI, the SEO game will be, where does Google source the content? So like where is the AI trained off of? If we have all this AI creating content, whether it's Google or whether it's something like DraftHorse, it's what is the source of truth for the content that's being made by the AI? And then, yeah, exactly what you said. What is Google going to do with it? Is if the query can be answered with AI, does Google just put it at the top? Or how do you add additional value on top of that?
I think there's just to pick that apart, I think there's two pieces of that. I think Google is a company that's doing this, and it's literally like what Google's about to ship is this company. They just raised, I think, like 30 million. It's called Perplexity AI. Basically what it does is it scrapes the front page of a query. So say you ask it a question and it finds like the top 10 links, and then it pulls out all the relevant information to that question. Basically, it creates that definitive corpus. And then it says, okay, now answer this question LM based off of this corpus. GPT-4 goes in and it writes like an answer to this. And it gives source links to like where it's pulling that idea from the front page. So I think Google is going to be like, I think there's they're going to do that, right? That exact thing where they're going to say, okay, top 10 search results. They're probably like an aggregate of all those together is probably a really good answer for this query. We'll take that. And then we're going to have the AI rewrite that and mention whatever we think is the best answer. The other side of that is it's going to be like, okay, this is just like, what is wood, or like how do trees grow? That's just general knowledge information. It's not going to serve a search query. Like it's just going to give you what the AI thinks that answer is. And so I think that those queries are going to be way different. I'm just imagining like how to start XYZ business. Like I think there's probably some nuance in there that it can pull from different sections. But again, like how does a tree grow or why is the sky blue? Like those things, I think it's going to just say, hey, this is commodity content. This is commodity knowledge. Like we're not sourcing it from these other websites. Like we're not even going to serve these other websites.
Yeah, that's wild. That's fascinating. It does that already, even without AI. It's
100%.
Really,
yeah. Like snippets are that basically, right?
Yeah.
It's like a rewritten. Yeah, exactly.
Wild. That's fascinating, man. Dude, that's crazy. Okay. Shifting gears into the race to arbitrage. I'm super curious. How many impressions are you getting on Twitter right now? You said something like 2.7 million or something like that.
2.7 million. And I have 7,600 followers right now.
Dude,
like,
that's
it's
freaking wild.
It's insane, Kobe. It's insane. There's two arbitrages I'm seeing that are just ridiculous right now. Like one is podcasting, and I've been preaching this like for forever. Like I have a friend that's in the UK, and he just took his podcast from non-existent to a top marketing podcast. I think the position like 13 is what I saw like most recently. Wow. And it's called In Growth We Trust. And literally like all they're doing is just gaming like podcast downloads, right? Like insane arbitrage, insane. Also, it's a team of 2 people, right? And they're going to make $1 million asset in 12 months, basically doing this. And there's all these other factors, right? Like where it's like they have some like notoriety already in those pieces. Like they're not starting from entirely zero, but that is one of these arbitrages that exists. The SEO one the Twitter one is insane. And then this programmatic SEO one is insane. So back to the Twitter piece. So on Twitter, I don't know why, honestly. I've thought about this. Like, why is it happening? I think it's more just, I don't have an answer, but it's working. So I'm like just doubling down on it. I don't want to be there, dude. That's the worst part of this. I hate social media. You know this. Like when I worked at Rupa, like I didn't have social. Like the only reason I had it was so I could do my job because it's all fake. It's all made up and it's not real. So I think like and maybe this is why like it's working is like, if you have a unique point of view and you don't be this buttoned up version, you be like almost like a train of thought or just, it's like free form. It feels raw like the internet used to be. Like there is this opportunity to basically like on that platform in particular to just get a ton of reach. I think just like all the changes that they're making, and the biggest thing for our companies and like why I'm there and why I'm doing this is because it creates an insane amount of inbound for Draft Horse. Because like where do marketers and developers and business owners hang out? Like they hang out on Twitter, and that's where they discover new things and they learn new things. They go to LinkedIn to project who they want people to think they are or whatever. But Twitter is like way more of this, like, I almost feel it's stripped down and it's in its most like vulnerable form. And I swear to God, the people I've met from this, that's the other piece of this. It's just the inbound I've gotten is absolutely insane. People where I'm like, holy shit, I have used your software or your company for my entire career. And you want to talk to me? It's nuts. And again, like the only reason I'm doing this is because it's grown my company. Like I don't want to be there. I hate being on Twitter. It's the dumbest thing ever. And I honestly makes me so mad that it's working, but my company's growing. So I have to do it. Right. So I serve the business. That's why I'm here. Like I serve the business and I serve the customer. And so my actions are defined by what makes those things grow.
That's wild. Okay. So from the outside looking in, it appears your Twitter strategy is say a lot of stuff and try to be a little wild about it sometimes. I'm super curious how you think the Twitter algorithm works. Do you think it's like a lottery where just randomly shit will pop off? Or do you think that the content is actually better when the content that goes viral is actually better than the content that doesn't?
I'm always shocked by what ends up going viral. So my whole strategy with this was basically like, I'm going to do stuff that I think is cool, which is building companies. And I'm going to talk about it in public. Okay. And I'm going to publish a ton of stuff. Everybody was doing threads when I got started with this. And I was like, threads are dumb. It feels ridiculous to me. And most of the time people don't read them. They read the first one. So I'm like, okay, these are the small tactical things I did. I was like, cool, I'm going to publish a lot. And so I publish 10 times a day and it's all scheduled. I sit down on Sundays, I pour a glass of whiskey and I write 70 tweets. That is literally what it is. And what I do, and so what I did in the beginning is I was focused on a couple things. So I focused on, okay, I'm going to do volume, not threads. I'm going to try to strip it down so that I'm going to take all the language to its core. Like it has the essence, the idea still exists, but there's nothing more, right? The other piece is I'm going to just try to incorporate humor into it and just like this character, just like we've known each other for forever. I'm a pair of shoes away from a cult leader, right? So it's cool. I'm just going to be that person because that's what it is. And then the other component that I don't think people talk about enough is like when you space tweets out, when you like stylize tweets where it's almost like you're like instant messaging, what you're actually doing is you're taking up more screen real estate. Like, why are we putting extensions on Google Ads? It's because we're trying to take up as much of the page as possible when we serve that ad for a search query. I took that same philosophy and I just applied it to Twitter. I'm trying to take up as much of the screen real estate on a phone as possible. And if you look at my shit, like on Twitter, like when you're on a mobile device, what you're going to see is that it takes up majority of the screen. So you have nothing to look at. So it's like, you're either looking at it or you're not looking at it. And so it forces you to basically be engaged with that topic. It's almost like TikTok and how it forces you, you're looking at one video at a time, right? It's that same content just being remixed. So that's the tactical components. The actual process is write a ton of stuff, look at the data, what's getting the most impressions. Okay, I'm going to write more stuff that like the ones that are getting the most impressions. I'm going to stop writing like the ones that don't. And I just do that over and over again. And I'm growing. I think the account's growing into like 100 followers a day. And it's getting, again, like around 2.7 million impressions a month. And so to me, I'm just looking at the trailing 3-month growth rate. If it grows at the pace that it's growing for the next 6 months, so until the end of the year, the account will be at 50,000 and it will do around 20 million impressions a month. Like I'm paying $5 million for 2 hours of my time a week and 20 million impressions a month. That's the cheapest CPM that exists. Why would you not be doing it? That's just from a marketer standpoint, like that's what we're all looking for is arbitrage, right? This is arbitrage. This is the definition of it. And it will be gone. There will be a moment where this all disappears. So it's either capitalize on it or don't. Do you have the resources to capitalize on it or don't? And like right now, this is one of the things that I have resources for. So I'm like, cool, that's the logic and kind of the system and process behind it.
That's wild. I got to tweet more. I feel like I'm a bad Tara and I'm a bad Cody where my stuff doesn't pop off like Tara does. And I don't tweet frequently enough to have stuff pop off like yours. I'll just like occasionally like once a month have something do well.
I think so like Tara, to pick that apart, like Tara is really good at refining her thoughts, right? And my way of doing that is refining thoughts in public. So and this is just a way how I view business. Like I'm going to put things into the world that are good enough and I'm going to get the response back and then I'm going to adjust based on that. But that comes from a digital marketing background, right? There's another way to do this and it still works. It works just as well, which is I'm going to refine in private and I'm going to only show, like I'm going to do all the sausage making in private and I'm going to only show the most banger stuff that's the most refined in public. Both of those ways can do it. For me personally, just how I function, like the way that I'm doing it currently is just the most effective for the type of person I am. And I think it's just like business, right? There's a million ways to run a business. You have to do that way that's most effective for you. And it's the same thing when it comes to content production or marketing. Like you have to figure out like what those strengths are and then play to those. So
I love that. That's awesome, man. Okay. The most important question of this interview is how important is SEO for Draft Horse?
Yeah, none of our signups have come from, none of our revenue, none of our signups has come from SEO. We just started publishing articles.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah. So it's all come from Twitter, like purely inbound, like just like tweet going viral. That is all of its growth is from Twitter, just word of mouth, organic social.
That's insane. Twitter is having a moment right now.
It's the most crazy thing I've seen in the last 5 years, just personally from a business standpoint. I think we also we have product market fit, we have channel market fit. Like it's those things are all happening, right? Like again, marketers are on Twitter and they are looking for ways to employ AI to do content production. And that's all I'm talking about, right? So of course it's getting distribution. If I was on there and I was like talking a funeral home software, probably not the right place for it. And there's 0% chance that it would go viral. But because this audience is receptive, like that's the reason it's happening. It's like, I'm like, this, again, I've been this thing now for 6 months, right? So it's like that audience has been hearing me shit post for 6 months. Like even if it's just like me talking about random stuff in public, like there's a trust metric that's built into that. So it's like, cool, here's this thing that does this thing. oh, I go use it and it actually works. And I know this person, I've been whatever. I've been engaging with this person for that's 3 or 6 months or whatever it is. You checked all those boxes of what it takes to like have a business, right? It's like I have a product, I have a way to sell it, and people trust me. Okay, cool. They're going to buy that thing. So
What I'm serious, so I'm super curious how you're gonna go and capture all of this like arbitrage, which is like this arms race to AI SEO. So you're adding in your own SEO blog posts. Like what else? I'm curious. What's your plans for the next growth levers for Draft Horse?
dude, I am literally everything that you can think of. I am trying. Like I'm scraping every agency in the US is every employee that works at a digital marketing agency that does anything related to SEO. I'm going to email them within the next 6 months.
Is there an enterprise play? Can you hire salespeople to go sell this to agencies and like large companies and stuff?
Already happening. Yeah. We just talked to a guy 3 days ago, and that's basically the conversation. So has relationships in those industries. Again, these companies are spending like millions of dollars a year on content writers. Oh, you're telling me that I can get the first drafts of these all written like at a way cheaper cost than I could previously. So that's this one play. The other side of this market is all of the like the media companies. Like we're talking to this company that's in the CPG space. And so consumer packaged goods, they basically make all of this content and then they basically traffic broker to Nestle or whatever and promote the products. So there's that other side of this. So I'm doing like, I'm going to be on every podcast. Like we're doing this PR, like full sprint thing. I'm doing cold email, doing advertising across all channels I can think of that anywhere would be. We're sponsoring newsletters. I'm sponsoring podcasts. I'm sponsoring YouTube or any place that it's basically get to scale as fast as possible. And that's really the game that we're playing. Also, I think different versions of this are going to come out. Like we've already seen clones roll out that are basically just like Draft Horse clones. And there's another company that's been doing this for longer than we have, but they just haven't got the product locked in. They're trying to do too many things rather than just this one deep T thing. And we back channeled them and like they hit 1 million ARR and I think it was in 6 months. So basically my growth model is that I'm trying to do that. And that's where we're going with this.
Are you going to take on VC funds? I'm super curious.
I have no idea. We have to like just to sustain the growth right now. We don't need to, and there isn't a clear path. I think the thing with all of this is I'm like, I don't know if I want to raise just with how quickly it's changing. Cause like we could have raised on Swell, just like full transparency. And what that came down to is basically what's most likely going to happen, and I have no insider knowledge, is Riverside and Descript are going to create an AI writer for podcasters. And so you just upload your stuff into it and then you can have it repurposed into whatever you're looking for. That is, so for us, like the positioning on the company had to really quickly evolve. And so we repositioned it to like serving a different customer than just the broadest audience. Because Riverside and Descript are more upstream than us. Naturally, like why would I go use this other thing if I can get it right out of this? So if Descript writes my podcast show notes, I don't need Swell, right? So that's basically the idea. I think people think I'm anti-VC. I'm just like anti-VC if you're not going for $1 billion as fast as you can. And right now I don't see that path. And until that becomes apparent, it just doesn't make sense. Also, it's just like you typically raise when you need, like you have to hire people really quickly and you can't cash flow those hires. And that's like, you basically need engine and growth people. And right now I think that paradigm is shifting currently with like 10x developers that are using AI to write their code or 100x developers. Like the stuff they can ship, how quickly they can ship by having it do work. Like Max is writing a WordPress plugin right now using AI and he doesn't write PHP and we're going to ship that. Like that is insane when you think about that. So
Remember when that used to be a huge thing of, oh, you can write in one language and it'll get transpiled or I'm not a developer. Someone don't flame me here, but it'll get turned from one language into another language. And like, that was a huge thing. And like now AI is boom.
It's insane. As long as you know the technical way to describe what you're talking about. And there's these editors that are coming out. I can't remember the one I just saw. It's called like Celsius or something, but it can look at your entire code base and you can just ask questions against it and also have it write code for you and things that you don't understand or don't know. And so that is amazing to me. Like just now think about that when it's okay. I have an experienced developer, like they're a 10x engineer. They've been in the Valley. They've done all of these things and we give them that resource now. This is the age of 10-person, $100 million AR companies, right? Like you're going to be able to augment teams in a way that you never were previously. I just got off a call with somebody, actually, they're calling it digital operations. I think it's a really good way to describe it. It's basically like I look at a process, I audit it, I then either automate it with AI or I outsource it. And then I build basically the dashboards to see what's going on within that whole thing that I built to verify the health of the business. Like traditionally in VC-backed companies, what you had to do is you had to have eng and you had to have like product people and growth people. So what happens when you can have 5 engineers, or we'll say 7 engineers and 3 product growth people, and the rest of it is augmented in some way by either AI or offshore team members. I'm just thinking customer service as an example. I mean, like there's all of these companies now that are specializing in this too. It's, oh, you want to hire in the Philippines? We're gonna validate this person. Like, is a good hire. You don't even have to go through that hiring process, and we're gonna like basically give them to you, and they just turn into a full-time team member. And they work, but it works on a contract. Well, like it works in a contract way, and you just use Deal for your payment structure or whatever. It's a whole new world right now that is evolving. And I just stand behind this. Like, you're going to see multiple $100 million AR companies come like into existence in the next couple of years with 10 person team members, right? It's not going to be an anomaly like when Instagram does it, right? They got like huge, like with this small amount of people. It's going to be totally possible, like in the B2B SaaS space in a way that it wasn't previously. So.
Wild. All right, Cody, very last question. If I'm a marketer or I want to get signed up for Draft Horse, how do I do that?
Yeah. So Draft Horse, just go to drafthorseai.com. It's free to sign up. You can start writing articles with it. Basically, you drop in a target keyword and it's like a minute to 3 minutes later, depending on how busy we are, we'll give you an article back. If you're trying to learn marketing though, I keep getting asked this question. And what I've always told people is start a blog, figure out how to drive traffic to it, figure out how to sell something to that traffic. And you're going to be in the top 1% of marketers if you can do those things. It is not expensive to do that. It's cheaper than ever before to do that. It's actually really funny, Kobe. This is like totally a digression, but we had somebody like make this Discord channel, and it's all of these crypto kids that have got socked when this market tanked. They are now like starting to basically get into legitimate marketing, right? They're like, okay, how do I build websites? And like, how do I like get traffic to websites? And they're using Draft Horse to build this. And so like, I'm doing like tutorial videos on a weekly basis where I just drop them in there. Here's how to think about this. And here's like how to do this. They have 300 members already. And it's, I think 7 days old or whatever. And it's just popping off with, you have vets in there, just dropping like knowledge where I'm like, oh, that's to me, 10 plus years of experience, like super interesting. So I think what I'm trying to get at is marketing is like, it can only be learned now by doing it. And so like, you just have to do it in some way. No course can teach you it. Like, just get out there and do what I said, build a website, figure out how to get traffic, figure out how to sell them. And if you do that, you're in the top 1% of marketers.
Cody, I completely agree with you. The only caveat I would add is I think if you did a weekly live class where you did like case studies or like just an ISEO masterclass, and then you like sent that out through your newsletter and Twitter, you would turn into a full-fledged cult leader. Like, it would be absolutely wild.
We'll see, man. We're going to take this podcast and chop it up into a ton of smaller, like bite-sized clips. This is what it is now, right? As a founder, your job is to almost be a meme, which is ridiculous, but this is what it's turned into. Also, you can be a good version of that. I think that's the other side. I'm so pissed off right now. Like Nick Huber, it drives me insane how he basically rage baits the internet. And the fact that people engage with it, I don't know. I understand the purpose behind it. I get that it's serving his business. I'd like a great example is he did that whole like farming thing. Like I think 2 weeks ago, it got to the front page of Reddit in 24 hours. Somebody screenshot it, right? Like screen tweeted it. The thing that I like am trying to really focus on is like all the internet is fake. Try to at least keep it some real life. Maybe that view changes, but right now it's just, that's the thing that drives me insane. It's just like how people are basically tapping, like Twitter is a rage machine. Yeah. And there are things that like I'm probably doing that are tapping into that, but I want there to be at least some like components of it where it's like the end goal serves not just me, it also serves like a larger idea or a larger thought. Anyway, I could be totally off on that, and also that view could change.
No, I totally agree. And I talk with Tara about this a lot. You have brand equity, and brand equity can be like positive or negative.
Yep.
And when you like tap into that like rage machine, it can go viral and people be like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. But then it's okay. Then it's like developing like this negativity out into the world. And
100%, 100%. And you'll always have that faction that will like you like for that, which is fine. And that's probably like what he's tapping into. He's okay. I'm going to build and like, and I'm using him as an example because it's recent, but there's tons of people that are all doing this exact same thing. I think to your point though, is like over time, you're going to get a large faction of people that really despise what you are and what you stand for because of that negative like brand that you've built that's been slowly built over that time period of using that rage-based system. Because I don't think people understand conceptually what's actually happening. Like that, do you think that farming post was not like intentionally, that was the most designed? And again, like I'm looking at that from an agnostic marketing perspective, awesome piece of content. Unbelievable. From a personal bias standpoint, like that enrages me. Like that, it just feels gimmicky, feels cheap. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought.
okay, so I'm stealing this from some Mr. Beast clip I had watched. So this is a great cup of coffee. This is the best freaking cup of coffee I've ever seen in my entire life. You absolutely need to try this out. Two completely different things. And that wasn't positive or negative. Like, it was just me being like super enthusiastic. It was like, what is the most extreme thing I can say about this can of coffee? And I've been trying to layer that into our Rupa content. Is we'll have a concept, and the concept can be, okay, we went to a board meeting, or we went on a trip with like our like Rupa employees. And then what is the most extreme way that we can talk about those things? So what we've been trying to do internally is just
This is a really good idea, by the way. I like this idea. Yeah.
is take authentic things that you think are cool about your life or whatever you're building or happening, and try to figure out the most extreme in the positive way that you can talk about those things.
Yeah. To say it in a different way, it's like having the spectrum of like extremism, right? Positive and negative. And what you're trying to do, and it's probably a quadrant in all reality, is you're trying to find that point where it's I'm being extreme, but just above that positive line. Because typically like the more extreme you get, the closer to negative you get. But if you're just above that positive line, like I always get back to like gambling, right? If I hit 51% of the time long enough, like you're rich, right? And it's the same thing on brand. But the difference is that brand is way harder to like very quickly erode in the way that, in my opinion, like I think that brand is a lot more of a sturdy like thing than a bankroll. So with that said, it's okay. If you're in that mark, say you're 60% of that rage or 60% of that rage or whatever, or 40% of that rage. So you're riding that line. But I think if it serves a purpose, like it's noble too, in a way, right? Okay. Like I'm trying to get this thing to happen. And maybe it can be a positive thing. And I'm tapping into that mechanism of human psychology to get that positive thing happening. But yeah, we could go down the psychology of this all day long. And I'm no expert on this, man. I'm just a guy that's shit posting on Twitter.
Cody, you're my favorite shit poster on Twitter. I appreciate you so much.
Well, I have so many random people that have been like, yeah, man, they're like, I'm on Twitter right now for the random shit you said. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. It's just,
you know, what's wild is
I didn't do this for forever too. Like it's one of those things where it was one of those marketing arbitrages that was just like too good where as a marketer, you're just like, I can't help myself. Like I have to do it, which is probably a compulsion, but let's not call it that.
I wish more of our Rupa users were on Twitter. Like we do it purely for the hiring brand.
100%.
How to saturate tech Twitter. All right, Cody, that's all I got. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. I so appreciate you, man.
Dude, absolutely. Anytime, brother. It's so good to hear your voice. And I hope that everybody's good and you're doing well in SF. And I think I'm going to be out there in August. So we should grab dinner or coffee or something. I'd love to see it.